This agenda, everybody content with the organization of the agenda? Okay, moving along. Manager's report. Oh, excuse me, public comment. Anybody from this public wish to take 5 minutes to speak to a particular topic not on the agenda?
5 or less.
5 or less. No more than 5. So, manager's reports. Sales CSR report.
Already hear me back here?
Not really. Can you come around the front, please?
Yeah. Right, better?
Yeah. Stage, please.
Basically, the numbers for last month, they weren't great. Data was flat. Phone, we lost 13 subscribers. Cable, 20 subscribers. On the business side, we added 4 business data customers and 5 business phone customers. Met with the marketing committee. They discussed small office packages to business. We created partnerships with local businesses, including Coefficient, Paul Hurt, and Summit, which is Chris Owen. They discussed offering tiers from 2 to 100 megabytes. We're getting into that later today. Opting out of video was considered, and the committee's recommendation was not to opt out of video at this time. Turning off TV now would cause loss of a lot of customers, and we don't have a viable backup option as of right now. And the most exciting thing is the new website is going to be in launch stage here soon, and we'll get to see that real soon here. Any questions?
I do on the sales numbers that you reflected,
Uh-huh.
or that you indicated, are they reflected on the staff report? Because I don't see those numbers. I'm looking at the ones, that maybe I'm just scanning and missing.
Oh, are you looking at
The fiscal impact?
this one?
No,
Yeah,
no. The February 15, 2015 MINET Board, Jason Saunders Sales /CSR Manager Monthly Report.
Oh, yeah.
It is a
It is.
fiscal
Oh, yeah.
impact.
Yeah, it is.
Right, but you talked about negative numbers, and there's nothing other.
Oh.
Keep up the red.
Fiscal impact?
Oh, did you? Oh, okay. I got bad. Okay, there you go. All right.
Thank you. Very good.
So are we down 20 on cable because of, I mean, that's a pretty high number for this time of year, isn't it?
Various things. Football's over. That's a big thing. It's the dead season. No major sport besides basketball. But okay, NASCAR. But a lot of people coming in. That's basically what they're leaving for is sports programming. The weather's been nice, so.
Okay. Is it other companies? Are we seeing
I've only been back about 3
Charter?
weeks. I know we've gained 3 customers back from Charter
Okay.
that went to Charter, didn't like it, and came back to us. I haven't overheard or heard the CSR say anything about people leaving for other companies.
Okay.
Mainly it's been finances and sports.
I've seen Charter around quite a bit. What, do we know anything about what they're doing, their sales strategies right now?
But they're still trying to upgrade.
I know they're trying, in our neighborhood, they've been trying to hook one person up for like 4 days.
Exactly. They never finished their upgrade.
Yeah.
So they employed this tactic in Dallas. If someone signs up for service, that's when they'll upgrade that area to get your service. They came by my house last summer. They didn't do anything. They put the plastic pads there, they put the fiber there, but there's no taps to activate customers. So what you'll see every day at Ross, in the morning and at lunch, you'll see 3 bucket trucks there. That's what they're doing. They're just going around and upgrading services. Because they don't have 100 megs here, they say they do. I did some research, they don't. They're not fully upgraded. I talked to a few reps yesterday, and yeah. So I don't know if they're waiting for Comcast to take. I don't know what their strategy is, but they're not taking a lot, if any, customers from us.
February nearly over. Is this trending into February in the same way? Have you seen any kind of turnaround, or what's our strategy?
Like I said, I've just been back 3 weeks. I'm trying to get everything situated. We've got the price increase. We're changing some things. I'm going to focus marketing more, target marketing. We're looking to get those subscribers back. This is the time of year where there is college kids start dropping off. The video is not what scares me as much as being flat on data. That's the one that concerned me. It usually doesn't happen. Phone's phone. But yeah, I'll be addressing these this month and next month and ongoing to make sure we see if we can.
We also have the county address list now.
Oh,
We didn't have.
thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, we have the county address list, so we have every serviceable address in the area, targeted to mass mail, to knock doors, so we're just gathering data to get the best plan. Anything else? That it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
PJ, you up?
Yep.
I had a couple of things just to touch on real briefly. One was just kind of general update about the status of the staff with the field technicians. Eddie, our longest, or our field technician of longest tenure, has been elevated to lead field technician. We got a new employee, Dave Smith, who has an extensive background in phone, and one of the things that he has a big background in. He comes from CenturyLink, and he has a lot of background in safety, and so he's taken on the role of being our safety coordinator. He's going to be conducting monthly safety meetings and that kind of thing. And so with that, we're hoping to kind of maybe look at some additional certifications for people that don't have them already, first aid, flagging certification, maybe forklift certification, that kind of stuff. I had a note to just mention on-call, and that we have a rotating on-call where we've got 5 people in rotation right now, so 7 days a week we've got somebody there to cover that. I also had a note regarding elation, and that there's some struggles that we still have with provisioning and trouble tickets, and we're doing workarounds outside of elation to make that be as efficient as possible. And then we've got a CSR who's coming in and doing some part-time training with provisioning and elation to kind of do backup role and that kind of stuff. And that's what I had on the list today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Yeah.
I have one. Pardon me, I'm new enough that I'm still trying to get my sense of things.
Sure.
As I went back, as I read the minutes from last time, so I have to go back to last time for just a moment. And the question was, what's your turnaround time on a new order? And, if the conduit is in, it's like a week, and if it's not in yet, then like 10 days. Was that reflecting until they're hooked up and they're actually serviced?
Probably so if it's brand new. If it's conduit, it's 10 days. That just means to get the conduit guys out there, it gives them time to do that. I think, Jason, we're probably pretty close to that on a full brand new install as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
if they've
we're
had
probably
service before and plugged in, we can do the
do
24
it right
hours.
away,
Yeah.
right? But if it's something brand new where they've never had fiber to the home, they've never had the ONT there, then we're still
So that's
about 10
the
days.
roundup then, basically.
Yeah.
But if somebody just decides they need to switch on, they're one of the, the new subscribers.
24 hours,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
and usually same day, just
Sure.
flip the switch, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
PJ, these new classifications, lead tech, safety officer, are they in the classification plan? Is that a salary adjustment, or how does that work?
No.
That's an honorific title. Okay.
Anything else?
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep.
You're up, Don.
Okay, thank you. At the previous board meeting, it was requested that we provide a sales forecast looking forward. And upon Jason's return, we spent a great deal of time analyzing what we are bringing to the table as far as marketing resources, what we're bringing to the table as it relates to our new package pricing, which we received a recommendation from the Finance Committee for yesterday, along with our increased bandwidth packages. In particular, we went ahead and put together a forecast for the next, this will be the next 30 months. that's attached. It's relatively self-explanatory. While it's aggressive, while it's scary, and I think Jason Saunders would be the first to agree with both of those facts, we do have confidence that we've issued you our forecast that is in fact attainable. Any questions as it relates to that?
Will you be reporting monthly progress on
We
the
will
board?
be reporting against this as well as the actuals and against this.
Yeah. Do we have any historic
These numbers
information?
have also, I'm sorry?
Do we have any historic information of forecast versus actuals?
Just as it would relate to what information we could get out of the doesn't totally interest me. We're developing those now.
How relevant is that for you, for us to produce that?
Today, not at all. At some point, it'd be nice to have that information, but frankly, going forward is more important.
We can put some effort into that, and I'd be happy to tell you whether we're running into a lot of aggressive roadblocks to determine that. But we can pull it, but our data between the two systems is less than reliable.
I'm not looking at 8-hour shifts dedicated to this, but if you had an easy way to get the information, that'd be great.
Well,
if not, just going forward, it'd be definitely more important to us.
We'll certainly do so. These numbers also, Mark, I see that Ben is not here yet. Are you anticipating going into the recast today?
Not in any depth, since we didn't have time really to discuss it at the finance committee.
These numbers were also utilized in producing the recast business plan. Okay? For the next, the remainder of the fiscal year and going forward. For two, we reflect into today. 2 forward years or just the balance?
No, the recast is just the balance.
Just the balance, okay. Next item is phone service and prices. This is informational only because we have determined that our phone pricing is exceptionally competitive and is significantly profitable. And therefore, we have requested no price adjustments in our April 1st price adjustment plan for our voice product. So information only, we are not making any changes to our phone pricing or essentially our packages. One of the things that I wanted to make you, any questions on the phone pricing?
Okay.
If not, the next item, we wanted to make you aware of our business customer environment, what is available to us, what we feel that we can go after, what penetration we have. What's most interesting is the highest percentage of our new business sales in January and in February thus far have been business sales. So we continue to focus on that, and we thought we would simply give you, for information purposes, our analysis of the business environment in the two communities and what we have available for us yet to acquire. If there's no questions on that, I really want to allot as much time as possible to Mr. Landry to roll out our new website to the board meeting. With that, I'll ask Mr. Landry to come up.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. We've been working on this new web project here, but Marilyn thought it'd be a good idea for me to just introduce myself a little bit and tell you a little bit about me, so you know who you're working with here. I started out. I grew up here in Polk County and started my education over at IES here, and I did some time at Henry Hill before moving over to Rick Grill, and then grew up there and went through Dallas. And
It sounded like penance.
Joe, what were you at IBS?
I was there in '82. Yeah, and then you see here, I got a little bit of education. This helps me remember. And then I went down to Southern Oregon, but then came back to Western to graduate, and then went into politics for a long time, and worked for some lobbyists and PR firms, and then as a political researcher for the Kulingoski administration, and then spent some time working from Germany, and then came back, got my second degree in German up at Portland State, and then went through the Interactive Media Producer Program, which is when I got involved in web technologies, and did some web work for different companies at that point. And then also did a little stint with AFL-CIO at some point, which I realized Tim Nesbitt lives here in town, I understand. So we worked together at the AFL-CIO. And then worked in Italy for a couple years, recently renovating a bed and breakfast out there. And then for the last 3 years, I've been really focused on programming in this framework called Ruby on Rails and with JavaScript. So that's just a little background. And also, when I was just getting out of high school before going into college, I met PJ back here. We worked together at Morrow Snowboards, putting bindings together on the assembly line. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you all, you can bring up the website on your mobile devices. I know normally you're not supposed to look at your device while we're in these meetings, but if you go to minet.us on your device, you can log in with minet_board.
What's the username
The username is minet_board.
and the password?
And the password is "It's Alive." So capital I-T apostrophe S, capital A-L-I-V-E, then 3 exclamation points.
Okay.
Because I put this thing here because we started this out as a web redesign project, but always these web projects tend to be part of a bigger business initiative where you do some business analysis and you manage this, start the project, and then you bring it through, and there's some institutional change that's always associated with a new website. But in this case, I think it's even more critical because this web application what it can do is it brings a lot of this business logic and a lot of the functions of MINET together into a machine that actually runs a lot of what this organization does. So I think we're building the foundation for, really a living machine here that is the MINET machine. And also what I want to say is, it's a work in progress, so it's always a little tricky to go through work in progress because you never know exactly what you should be paying attention to. But as we were going through this idea of redoing the site, I think we were kind of putting the thought of a little bit of a reboot, a little start over in the kind of a restart, where we take a little detour from the marketing that's been going on in the sense of the future and the exciting things. We take a small detour to focus on the customer and say, you know, what is really at the core is serving the customers here, and making things easier for them. One thing we want to do with that is have a Spanish site. So you can see it starts to translates here in all of this translates as well down here at the bottom. We now need to add the other translations for the other parts of the page, but we've already have the foundation for it. We just need that translated text. So that's underway. So switch this back to English here. And there's going to be a big focus on support, where they can easily submit a request, and there'll also be these places where they can see these frequently asked questions to reduce the amount of phone calls and reduce the amount of time that the CSRs are spending doing what they do. I'll just take you guys through. Of course, there'll be, you know, a news portion of it with a blog and where we can put the latest stories.
Gentlemen, just do that.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me turn this touch that way. I tend to mumble. So you know, your standard blog functionality that you can all imagine, and then because there's a focus. Whoops, get out of the way. Focus on business services. This page is also under construction here. Essentially, whatever the new packages would be, we could add them into this page here. A little focus on whichever clients are to be highlighted, and you know, whoever they are, we can add some advertising there. At the bottom of every page, of course, you have the about us, the hour of operation, you know, this kind of key information where you can go out of here. And I was thinking it might be a good idea to show who the board and executives are. It's displaying a little strange right now, but right now you guys are handsome drivers. Kind of strange titles there, but
It's much better that way.
and then let's go into services.
That can be annoying.
That can get annoying. We got our services here. The standard stuff there, and then when they click on any of these, it brings them to the plans. And these numbers are not right. These plans are still getting put together, which I guess as we go through this restructure, it'll also be a major part of rebranding what these plans are and what they're for. You got the television plans and the phone plans. There. Let's see here. We're also, want to make it so they can see all of the. We can dynamically create these channels. So, which I should show you guys now, which is the back end to this. Right now, if you click on my account, it just takes you to the old account management from Elation. But that's in the next, we essentially looked at going at this website in 3 phases. The first being just getting the overall design and content there. And then we're going to work on essentially this back-end integration where the CSRs can create content, manage some of this, manage the support requests and the orders as they come in. And then last, we were going to connect the e-commerce side of it, which is connecting. So let me just pull up that back.
Joe, would you reiterate the 3 phases that we're going through while you're talking about it?
Yeah.
With a little more definition.
It's displaying a little bit strange here. Screen's weird. So it's displaying a little bit strange, but yeah, so essentially the 3 phases were first we get the design down and the foundation for the translation and the angle for the new marketing concept, and then we were going to develop this back end which allows the admins to log in and create these different resources for the website. And then the 3rd phase would be connecting the e-commerce side of it, allowing them to order.
So if somebody in the public gets this one, Larry Bird is gonna be called for here.
Pardon me, what was
You're gonna
that?
be calling for Larry Bird here. The sample number you put up, so just so you know, we don't really wanna field those calls.
This is the, these are, these are the support tickets that a CSR can create, or when somebody fills this out right here. This is rock.
Right.
And then that's creates, it's hard to get around on this thing. These support requests. Which, this is still pretty rudimentary, but essentially this is based on something that PJ made internally, where we just basically want to have the tickets where they can be viewed and then dispatched to the IT guys in the field, and then they can everyone can see what's going on and have some
So
visibility.
this is all for internal operations?
Yeah, this is all
That's
internal
not customers.
Yeah. And then we can create alerts, so if there's a service outage, that when the people visit the site, they'll get an alert that lets them know. So we're working on that location. Of course, create blog content, create all the different channels.
Let me take you back for that last internal piece there. So is that those emails that are created, are there gonna be some kind of text alerts that go with it to the staff? Are they gonna be required to be checking their email all the time?
You mean for when there's a new service request?
Yeah.
Or a support request? So ideally, they would be logged into this and they would use it to manage their support tickets. So that they would see the support ticket and what status it is, and then they would dispatch it, and then they would mark it when it's complete, and they would write a note about the resolution. That way we can start to build some business intelligence around how long it's taking to process these requests, and then you could even get into a reward system, who's processing the most, who's doing the best in their support or their IT resolution of the support request. And then, of course, on here as well, there'll be orders. So they'll be looking at the orders. Orders will also have status as they get processed. And what you start to do is have this central place where you have the birth of business intelligence, essentially, where we're able to, we could create graphs from this. We have data in one central place. And one of the key components of this is that, you know, we're storing this data in a standards compliant database, and all of this is built on open source technology. So if we ever want to get this data out later, we want to aggregate it, we find a new application, we can always bring it in and out easily. And we probably will at some point. So how does it work is a good question. I'm monitoring it here on New Relic, and just a little bit of the, you know, the geek behind it. It's on Ubuntu as well as an Ubuntu server with an Nginx web server and a Ruby application server, and then a Postgres database server. So it's 4 servers that sit on one machine. They talk to each other over Unix sockets, and it should be really fast and should be really reliable. So I think that's all I have right now. If you guys have any questions, but we're able to.
What's the rollout schedule in this, Joe?
Yeah. We want to release it at the beginning of April, essentially. Have it done, and most of it done in early March. Now, of course, there could be more features added, but the core features we want to roll out with the new plan restructuring.
That would be phase 1.
That would essentially be phase 3 altogether, and then we would roll it out with the new plan. In April, yeah.
So that would be, we'll be rolling it out to the customers as well as the internally at the same time.
Yeah, that's one issue. The internal piece of it is, yeah, we'd want to do that a little bit earlier. We'd want to, actually at this point, I'd like to bring in some staff to start creating some of these resources, like getting the channels right and getting the plans right, exactly what they are, getting, starting to do the blog content and just starting to use it. And then also some feedback from the support team and the techs about how they're going to use the support tickets, how they're going to process them, if there are any changes that need to be made. What's nice about the framework is that we can make changes really quickly. I mean, it's built on they call it on rails essentially. So it's like there's a way you do things. So it gives you enough ability to program it to your customize it to the way you want it. But it also there are a lot of conventions and ways that things are done that allow you to build things out more quickly.
So the day comes and Joe Landry is called to a higher seat. If you're deciding to run for the Senate, who's going to take care of this when you're gone?
Yeah, that is a good question. I was thinking about this. I mean, it is a standardized application, and it's if I were to get hit by a truck, anyone who knows Ruby on Rails could manage this application. None of the logic so far it's all pretty standard stuff. We're dealing with relational databases, and it's a lot of create, read, update, and delete. and some relationships. As we get further into business logic in the model layer, that's all documented, so people can go through it and you can see what's being done. At the same time, it wouldn't be a bad idea to look forward in the sense of, what's the community doing for developing the next generation of programmers. And I mean, I could see building up, well, in the short term, anyone that can do Ruby on Rails can deal with this application, and it's going to be well documented. Documentation is actually built into it. It's all pretty standard, and it's built on standardized technologies. So there's nothing quirky with this. There's going to be nothing out of the ordinary.
How much is a change of content? Is that the staff at MINET, or is that you every time there's a need to change content?
So if it's the things that change dynamically are generally the blog content and the channels and
Pricing.
and so those are the things that essentially that's the phase 2 part of it, where we created this back end that allows people to create those kind of resources. So anyone can log in and create a new post or create a new channel and change which channels are active, create a new alert, change the plans that would be available for people to buy.
Rod, is there anything you would like to add to this conversation? You've been intimately involved in the development of this as well.
So from day one, David, your question was number one on how do we lay this out, because the staff will always want to update the landing page pictures and what's going on and what the promos are. And that's what Joe's talked about. He has an administrative panel that they could do that easily. So we have documented the sizes, the fonts that are compatible, all that stuff. So right from the very beginning, that was the layout. So it shouldn't be that there's going to be a lot of phone calls to Joe. And if there is, we have the bat signal that we'll put out for.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. In a nutshell, what are the customers getting in terms of new functionality? What's the real benefit to the customers of this?
So, first of all, is support. I mean, the support part of it is a huge selling point. And I mean, just being able to go here and go to number one, the frequently asked questions, which we're going to tag the questions. These, of course, these frequently asked questions can be generated here in the back. So if a CSR keeps getting a question, they create a new one. They get the question, the answer. They can also do it in Spanish. And then being able to submit a support request is also going to be really nice in the sense of, maybe we never have to talk to them on the phone. It might be in a lot of these cases where every single customer service request right now goes through a human touch of a phone call. Just if we have them send an email address, maybe a lot of those things could be solved without that. The Spanish support, I think, is a big plus for a lot of people. And then there's going to be, a clear vision of seeing what's available, what the plans are, and then being able to order online in this sense. We haven't really touched on too much on how much they're going to be managing their account online. We left it a little bit open because we weren't sure how well this would integrate with Elation, because Elation is a little bit of the challenge here to figure that out. But we have it slated to build in this ability to create an order and create these service plans and have them have them manage their account online. Which, even though it's possible right now, I don't know how many people actually use it or how it really works.
Joe, could we go back to how I interpreted an earlier question, which I will define it as auto notification?
Oh, yeah.
If an individual goes to this website and requests services without making a phone call, can we make this website generate an email to the CSR department?
Yes, easily.
Automatically, when that customer closes, we receive an email to contact them if that's so necessary.
Yeah, the
Or
email.
internally to track that it's gotten work.
The email engine's already built in. We can add an email at any point, any action within the application with just a couple lines of code where we can send an email when they create a request. We can send an email to whomever internally when the request is made. We can send emails if they make an order. We can send emails at any point, and we can send lots of them.
Would that have answered your question, Mr. Klein, earlier?
Yeah, thank you. I know we're tight on time again as ever, so if there are questions for Joe, reactions to the website. Anyone feeling one way or another, you like what they're doing, you think they're on target?
It's a big improvement.
That is the response that we've been getting from our marketing committee as well, that this is spot on.
This is what's being changed, right?
Approach.
Joe, is this remaining or is this changing?
This is the current site.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a lot less, it's not necessarily the most exciting design when it comes to, there's not really that much flashy on the logo or that sort of thing, but it's really focused on being fast and functioning and allowing the customer to get to what they want right away. And like I said, it is this foundation that can really go a long way. We can build whatever functionality you want into it, and once you have this basic foundation, it's easy to add features and it's easy to subtract features. So I think it's a really solid foundation to move the organization forward.
So the feedback we get on websites, we bring in web designers a lot in our line, is you do need a fair amount of flashing to the look and feel of it. You do need a fair amount of pictures and eye candy, if you will.
Yeah.
And not a whole lot of text. Obviously, you need functionality, so just something to keep in mind. I mean, you guys are, we're a high-tech company, so we ought to be leading edge, not trailing edge when it comes to what a web design ultimately looks like.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, we still have it's always a balance, right? It's a balance.
Can you go back to the prior page? High-speed internet, download speed up to 100 megabytes. Now, I don't know exactly the context of that, but that was a sort of an advertising thing that we said, be careful of the up to, that others are saying, like Comcast, up to,
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
but it rarely is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure what that means right there.
Oh, maybe it
That
will.
there may be a package that would get you 100 megabytes.
It's good to see
Or-
CYA legally.
Pardon?
I expect it's good to CYA legally.
Well,
I think it's saying that there's a varying number of packages you get between this and that. Because when you look down further, it says from 2 megabit all the way up to blazing speeds of
Sure.
100 megabit. So but I agree with what you're
Yeah.
saying, that you want to be careful about saying.
yeah, because we sort of made fun of that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that is good. I hear that, yeah. Maybe we could word
Packages that would provide
speeds
Yeah,
into.
yeah, something to that.
Okay.
There's no more questions, then thank you very much, Joe.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, we're up to, anything else in your report, Don? Are we done?
No, not at that.
Okay, so I understand Ben may or may not make a showing, so Mark, you wanna go ahead and step up to the podium here?
What would you like me to cover, what we discussed at the finance committee? Because that,
We don't have any financials whatsoever, so whatever you want to cover, I guess
Excuse
it's up
me?
to you. We don't have any financial reports or information whatsoever at this point, so whatever you want to cover that gets us current on the financials.
so you, all right.
Do you have any reports for us?
Yeah, a lot of reports, a lot of information. A lot of it has to do with what we discussed at the finance committee yesterday. That's why I said, would you like me to discuss what we covered at the finance committee since Ben's not here?
I think at this juncture that if you can pick up Ben's task.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to.
I guess we're currently participating in years to be honest.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I believe we are.
Okay.
Therefore,
Are we done with this, or?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Pass out.
No, yeah, just a second, please. So let me just say, and not to steal Ben's thunder, so when he shows up, but let me just say that we had a finance committee yesterday, and virtually all the time was spent on reviewing recommended service pricing changes for the company. And quite frankly, that's about all we got through because it was quite a discussion and there was a lot to talk about. And the finance committee did end the meeting with recommendations in that regard. But assuming Ben shows up, I'll hold off. And if he doesn't, then I'll be more than happy to go into more detail about that. With respect to, and we did not have a chance to review the January 2015 financial results yesterday because of the aforementioned things I just mentioned. So what I'll do is walk you through some highlights here I think that are important for you to understand. So we won't go through all the entire package in detail. And then after this, I will, since we didn't have a chance to also talk about the reforecast for the second half of the year, I'll kind of append off of this to kind of give you a sense of management's outlook over this second half of the fiscal year, even though the finance committee didn't have time to discuss it yesterday. I apologize, the pagination isn't working out here, but what I want to do, and I think it's the fifth, as I recall, it's the fifth page in, you have a graphical report that looks like this. There you go. And this is a good one-page quick glance report that it's got tabular information on the top portion of the report and then a graphical representation on the lower half. It's like everybody found it. So this gives you a good trend of what's going on financially from an operational standpoint in the company. And I'd like to focus your attention to the far right two columns. Because what we tend to look at is what occurred in the most recent month of the company's fiscal year compared to the prior month to understand what changes are going on from a business standpoint. And as you can see, both numerically and graphically, the company was at a pretty steady state level of revenue in January. I think you heard some of the information shared about sales activity and the revenue here in the month of January for the company kind of bears that out. It was just a static, steady state month relative to revenue. What really did change in January was that the company felt the major thrust of the content programming providers' cost increases. And so while we maintained revenues at a fairly steady state level, our overall cost of goods sold went up primarily because of the increase in the prices on the content providers programming to the company. And while that's not as evident here, but you can see the gross margin went down by almost $10,000 at the same level of revenue. Our actual gross margin percent declined from 66.7% in December to 63.7% in January. So, and again, that's the effect of those increases being invoked, and therefore the urgency for the company to try to move forward in implementing some price increases on its services at a minimum to cover some of those costs. Now, having said that, relative to our cost of goods sold in the company, our cost for buying the supply of data capacity we need to provide data services remains fairly steady state. The company pays $17,000 a month for 4 gig of data capacity, which is more than sufficient to service the volume of its existing customers. In fact, Don has done a great job in negotiating with that provider such that in effective March 2015, that monthly price for purchasing the 4 gig will decline from $17,000 a month to $15,000 a month. So our actual cost of goods sold will decrease $2,000 a month, which is a pickup, for the company of $24,000 a year improvement on that. And
Let me add to that, Mark.
go ahead, Don.
In addition to our starting next month, our monthly COGS on wholesale internet access is going down $2,000 a month. Our demand on our network has been going up very dramatically. And from going to 17 to 15, we're now buying 10 gigs at 15.
Excuse me, okay. Thank you.
That's very relevant. And
Yep.
we cranked the speedometer up yesterday, and in the middle, somewhere at our high point, we maxed out at 5. So we're doing the right thing, and we have room to grow and reducing our costs. That's it. Just wanted to insert.
No, thank you very much. That's much appreciated. And we're not expecting any cost increase of any significance on our voice services. They remain static as well. We did have some increases in operating expenses for the month. Those were in some of the areas of plant-specific expenses. We had some various things relative to equipment and tool purchases. We had some additional expenses relative to service on the vehicle fleet and other items. And we also had some increases in some of the administrative expenses, primarily in the areas of our workers' comp expense. What we just talked about in terms of the investment in the website development, and we also had some additional increases in overall marketing and advertising expense for the month. With that being said, as you can see, unfortunately and regrettably, the operating income took a further decline in January from approximately $89,000 in December to $64,000 in January. So the company stayed static, fairly steady state relative to its business activity revenues. Cost of goods sold increased slightly because of things I mentioned. Operating expenses increased, to some degree. However, I don't see those operating expenses as being a recurring trend. They were kind of episodic for the month. So that's the kind of overview of the operating activity. Are there any questions that I can help answer or explain in regard to that? Having said that,
What was the hit on the cost of the cable services? What was the additional amount for that month?
It's 11.54% increase.
So what does that turn out to in dollars? Roughly.
Hold on a second. I don't have all like.
About 12,000, Mark.
Was it 12,000?
11,500, 12,000.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank
And
you.
that's a regular hit, or is that a one-time hit? I'm sorry.
No, it's a regular hit.
Is that rate going
Yeah.
forward now?
Yeah.
The 12,000 additional expenses every month?
Yeah. But again, we're mitigating some of that by some of the decrease in the cost for data services and such. So, having said that, and again, as I mentioned, we didn't have an opportunity, because time ran out at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, to really discuss the outlook then moving forward through the remainder of the fiscal year. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail because it would take too much of the meeting time, but I just want to kind of share with you, and this is a report I did that kind of summarizes and accompanies the actual forecast, which I'll leave with you, but I don't want to encroach upon the meeting time trying to look at it in detail. But I think it's useful to, having what I just said, kind of walk you through the management's thinking about the outlook for the remainder of the year. As Don mentioned to you previously, he and Jason worked intensively on developing a sales forecast for new sales unit growth. And what this document is this is a document of key assumptions that underpins management's forecast or outlook for the remainder of the year. So you can see in the first section, revenue, the sales growth, and Don mentioned part of that, and I think he gave you actually a schedule that has this. This is an extract of that. These key drivers from sales growth are in the forecast for the remainder of the fiscal year. When you move down there below that, you can see in price increases, which we haven't talked about yet, but you can see the amount of price increases that management is intending to, and Ben just showed up, so he'll speak more to that shortly. The price increases that are driving the forecasted outlook for the remainder of the year. And then you can see the relative cost of goods sold changes, which I just made reference to, both in areas of cost reductions in data and cost increases in video or cable TV cost. With that in mind, then, looking on page 2, you'll note that in the area of operating expenses, given the fact that I just talked about some operating expenses overruns, for January, we don't anticipate that for the remainder of the fiscal year, overall, relative to the operating cost structure of the company, that operating expenses are really going to change much from what the current run rate is for the company monthly. There is a recommendation by Don, I guess quite frankly a basic need to hire another tech relative to installations in the company. So we are forecasting adding a new tech in March throughout the remainder of the year. And then there was some impact still through the remainder of the year of an approval of merit increases that went into effect of July. Other than that, with respect to administration, I think we mentioned previously that right now with the conversion from the BQ billing system to the Elation billing system, that we've been having to pay both vendors for software support fees through the conversion period. That ends next month. So we will start realizing the benefit of a cost reduction of over $4,000 a month and eliminating that additional cost we've been paying to the old vendor through the conversion period. So with that in mind, then, the only other thing of major significance, and it's highlighted in the table below, there are still some capital expenditures relative to the operations of the business that management believes it needs to seriously consider taking on in the second half of the fiscal year, and you can see the schedule that I've provided there. That actually is reflective of some fairly significant amounts throughout the remainder of the year. Obviously, those will come up for discussion at the Finance Committee level and then be brought forth to the board before any action is taken on those. With that in mind, then, and I'm going to hand this up, but we're not going to go through the detail, but with that in mind, then, when you look at all those key assumptions that I just kind of briefly walked you through and what that means in terms of the outlook is going to stay fairly steady state through March, and then there's a pickup where it amps up in April, and the primary reason of that is because of the price increases on the services. Once those price increases are invoked and the assumed shift that we'll talk about later in some of the existing data customers to new levels of data services, that's going to pick up the revenue stream. And even with the cost of goods sold increase in cable TV services and the relative steady state management of operating costs, we believe in April the company should be able to return to generating operating income in excess of $100,000 a month again, and improving continually month after month with that in mind. This report in detail charts that out, okay? The first page just shows what happened in the first half of the fiscal year. The second page illustrates what is forecasted to happen in the second half of the fiscal year. Where that all culminates in, and the question you're probably interested in, is what does that mean in terms of potential cash flow generated for the second half of the fiscal year relative to the company's ability to fund the debt service payment in June, as well as potentially some of the capital expenditure needs, the requirements the company has for the second half of the fiscal year. And what that means at this point is our best forecast is that, assuming the company can achieve what I've just reviewed with you briefly throughout the remainder of this fiscal year through June, and if we assume that we have to take on the CapEx requirements for the second half of the fiscal year, it appears that the company, given its current cash position at the end of December, because that's where this started out, this is the end of the first half of the fiscal year, it would basically consume all its cash to fund debt service and fund the capital X requirements. And therefore, there wouldn't be any cash left for other working capital requirements. So it kind of puts us still in a challenge.
Is that for June or for December? I got you confused me with that.
Okay, I'll restate it. So at the end of December, and you'll see this in the green box here, the company had $366,000 in cash at the end of December, right? So that's the starting cash position for the second half of the fiscal year. Okay, that was working capital cash. When you look at the forecast on the second half of the second page here of this report, and which takes in all the considerations, the key assumptions I just talked about, everything from sales, price increases, cost of goods sold, et cetera, as well as capital requirements. When you look at that and the amount of cash that should be additionally generated in the second half of the fiscal year from that, in addition to the $366,000 where we started, you'll see in this green box down here on the second half, because this model calculates it, that basically we're at about a break-even position, which means that the cash we generate in the second half of the fiscal year, plus where we started at the end of December, will be just about sufficient to cover the $759,000 debt service requirement in June, plus the capital expenditure requirements that Don and the team thinks they still need to seriously consider moving forward to investing in the second half of the fiscal year. So my point in that comment is that there's still some serious challenges that the company needs to consider in terms of how to move forward to the second half of the year and where to put its cash to the highest use relative to current obligations and future points of success.
Has the Finance Committee reviewed all this information?
No, they haven't. That's why I said that's why I didn't want to get too much into it. We ran out of time yesterday. I distributed this out, and what I mentioned to the Finance Committee members is between now and next meeting, I made them an offer individually or collectively to sit down with them and go through this in detail, like I've gone through with you in a very summarized format, so that when we get to the March board meeting, Ben and/or I will have a more deliberate set of information based on the Finance Committee review to offer you relative to this. But I at least wanted to give you an understanding, especially in terms of how this hangs on and moves forward from what we just talked about in terms of the January 2015 actual financial results for the month. Is that helpful? Or?
Yeah, it's helpful. I want that the Finance Committee is
Of
exactly there
course.
for that purpose.
Yeah, but like I say, because we ran out of, we really needed to spend the time on pricing increases yesterday. That was the most mission critical area for the company because, as you know, there's a 30-day notification period. So we needed to get to a recommended position on those yesterday, so the company was in a position then to actually implement those pricing changes effective April 1st, and we ran out of time for this.
One item that just jumps out at me,
Yeah.
and you mentioned it in your report as well, the addition of the one FTE. Is that coming to us for a decision? How does that work?
I'll have to defer that.
We have that loaded in there because to maintain a installation schedule that is expected of us, same-day installation if we have a network in place, but also to meet the numbers that we're forecasting as new sales and not extend a build-out customer beyond the 7 to 10 days, which is too long in and of itself. We're looking like we're going to need another tech, so we decided to load it in there. If we can get by, I think we should be pretty well known for being extremely conservative in what we do, but I'd rather build it in and not need it than need it and not have it built in and then come to a surprise point that we don't have the horsepower to fulfill the commitments that we've made and you're expecting us to do.
So are you asking us for approval? I guess that's what I'm asking. This is a new position, correct?
We will ask the board for approval
When you need it?
when we need it, yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's kind of the summary overview I wanted to leave with you folks in terms of the management's outlook for the remainder of the year and what the work that's been done on that. And again, the Finance Committee is going to be spending time between yesterday's meeting and the next meeting because we...
Mark, what is it about the timing of the meetings that they can't get information and we can't get information ahead of time?
Are you talking about the financial report?
Yeah, all this data. I mean,
Well,
this-
okay.
This would be all good to have in our packets a week ahead.
Well, yeah,
so that we can
sure, I'll be
actually
glad to
think
do
about it.
that. The financial report, normally you should be getting around mid-month, okay? It was held up this month because of all of the content provider changes in their rates. We had to wait a long time to get their invoices for all of that. It would have been remiss to us just to try to estimate that in closing the month. So I made the decision with John and I said we're going to wait until we get all that information. So when we do have a financial closing, we have an accurate closing. That's not going to happen every month. Normally, this report should be available the middle of the month, and therefore the Finance Committee will have about a week's time to review it in advance of the meeting, and you will have that. So that's what you can expect again in March and there on out. In terms of some of this other information, like I just reviewed with you, I don't think that a lot of this is easily self-explanatory. So if I send this out to you in advance, it's not going to necessarily easily convey a lot of the thoughts I've just been sharing with you here. So it's a choice of me spending a lot of hours to document all that in writing with enough clarity that you might understand what I'm trying to communicate versus trying to give this to you here and in front of all you sharing those comments in person. So, I mean, I've taken the position not to get these out in advance because a lot of this stuff, unless you've been part of putting it together, you don't necessarily know all the underpinnings that go with it. However, having said that, if it's the board's pleasure for me to still deliver these in advance, I'd be more than pleased to do that.
First off, I'd rather the Finance Committee had that material and had that decision to make. That's,
Okay.
That's again, from my perspective,
Sure,
that's again what their
fine.
job is.
Yeah.
And if they want it in advance and they're happy that way, or if they want to present it
Right.
the way it's made, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're going to be turning to them and relying on them at some point a little more so.
Right, we did discuss that point, and what we kind of came to the conclusion was, instead of us getting the data and then you getting it at the meeting and us reporting, we'll just send it out to everybody, and then we'll still report on it, so that we can put perspective as he's talking about, but you'll get it, so hopefully then you can make up questions, and then maybe the presentation answers all those questions, and maybe it doesn't, and then you can jump in with more questions.
We did talk about that, you're right. But yeah, in advance, that's why I did, because I know in other experiences I have, when you put a lot of this out in advance, people look at it, but they don't necessarily get the meaning that they can get if it's spoken to, so anyway.
Well, and to alleviate probably a lot of your concern moving forward, it seems like there's an explanation why we didn't get it each month, but you have to ask the question. I think that could be avoided is when you're making that decision of, we're not going to send it out because we want the accurate information, if that was communicated in place of, then that would understanding would be
Sure.
there.
Yeah, we'll do. Good.
There you go. Thank you.
That concludes what I wanted to cover relative to January's financial performance, and again, how that kind of, leverages to move forward in the outlook for the remainder of the year. The other thing I would say is the financial position of the company stays strong. It's got sufficient working capital cash. There's not anything in terms of significant undesirable trends relative to, you know, cash building up in accounts receivable, accounts payable is being managed fine. So, you know, the financial position is still in very, very strong shape.
So I'm going to ask you the question that you always really don't have well best answer. You don't really in the position to best answer, but I always ask you anyway. The information that you're presenting us basically a forecast that goes through June that says, given all the assumptions are correct, this is where you end up. And clearly we end up in a position where we're going to have to ask the two cities again for support this June. No, let's let MINET go to zero, which is, I don't think this board's going to want to do that. So the second part of that question is the assumptions that are made going into this. How much do you believe in those assumptions? You've seen the forecast, you've seen the sales forecast.
Sure.
You've seen past
I mean,
performance.
and I spent a few minutes and I walked you through this in a document with the key assumptions or drivers on it, right? And then, so they all play a role in that outcome, right? And, you know, if you're asking for my professional opinion, which you are, I'm going to tell you that the price increases that Ben's going to be talking about, that the Finance Committee reviewed with management and management's recommending, they're going to happen because we're going to put them in place. So there's no uncertainty around that. The price increases are what they are. The cost of goods sold increase on cable TV and reduction on data cost, they're real. They are what they are. The sales growth, there's risk there. There's uncertainty there because, you know, I mean, there's uncertainty. I have confidence in Don and Jason relative to the work they did, but there's always uncertainty into the sales forecast. I mean, especially given what we've seen in terms of certain changes in sales activity in prior months. So there is a risk, and that's a you know, a relatively, it's a key driver in what you see on the other forecast relative to revenue growth, because the pricing increase is only a portion of that. Operating expenses, relative to assumptions around there, I'm highly confident that management can operate its overall operating expense cost structure close to what we've experienced here. If you look at the first page of this forecast, because this depicts the first half of the year, you'll see in the far right column, the 6-month budget for overall operating expense was $943,000. The actual operating expense incurred was $957,000. So that's only a $14,000 negative variance, right? That's 1.5% of the total. So I can tell you in any commercial enterprise company, if you brought that to the board, they would be impressed that you were that close to your plan. And when you look at the second half of the year, the forecast right now is $987,000 in total operating expense as compared to $957,000 actually incurred in the first half. That's about a $30,000 difference, but quite frankly, you know, this is a forecast. You know, there may be ways to find tactics to manage the resources of the company better than what we could forecast at this point, because time always helps you as you move forward in that. And so, to answer your question, I think the operating expenses, the forecast for that, the company has a high probability of managing successfully. I would say, given what I just shared with you, the biggest area of risk is in the sales growth. The new sales growth. The biggest area of risk is in the new sales growth, relative to achieving the forecast.
Well, and this isn't necessarily, Mark, a question for you, but for management. I agree that the costs can be relatively controlled. There may be a blip, but they can be generally controlled. And that there will be certainly revenues that come with a price increase. And to David's question earlier, what's the degree of confidence relative to prior forecasts? We have this is huge. I mean, these numbers appear to be, given recent trends, very aggressive.
The sales forecast.
The sales forecast. And that is, I mean, the others are manageable. I don't know, I mean, we're talking about a fairly aggressive sales increase. At the same time, we've got a price increase. So I mean,
Well, okay, yeah, and I don't want to jump the gun on Ben, but I will tell you.
and is Ben the guy that can answer that?
Well, no, price increases, okay?
Yeah.
You'll see when Ben talks about price increases, we're not recommending price increases that would put us out leading the market and therefore running a risk of losing customers because of that. So I don't think the price increases are going to put us in a position, to your point, which is a very good point, in terms of losing existing customer base because we're invoking these price increases. Because quite frankly, on the cable services, they're really not going to get a better deal. And quite frankly, MINET is the market leader on data services, and so we can be a little bit more aggressive with what we're doing in data services because we have the best offerings there are. So I don't think that's increased. Relative to going out and getting new customers to buy new units of service, that's another issue. And again, I mean, Jason and Don developed that. Yeah, our budget this year for the full year called for a 24% increase in sales growth activity, not price changes. And we're well behind that. So
Now we're projecting more, greater.
well, no, what we're doing is
Maintain the 24%.
no, what we're doing is based on where we are today, the current base of customers and sales units, this is the project. This and what you have on that, this is the projection in that growth. So that means that, for example, data customers, you'll see beginning in February, 45, 75, 50s. That means like in February and March, we have to be able to sell on average 10 units of new data service every week. So that's 2 units a day, every business day. And so, Don and Jason are better positioned to answer that to me. But So I mean, that's where the risk is being able to go out and you're identifying exactly where, if there's concern, there should be concern.
I didn't mean to, for
it's
you
fine.
to justify.
No, I'm just trying to help you
projections,
to
and
understand.
thank you for that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just trying to give you
Yeah.
some context, that's all. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Anything else I can help you with?
No, thank you.
Okay,
Ready for
you're
you?
welcome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and let's reflect on time here, everybody. We were at some point planning on an executive session. I have talked to Chad earlier and said we were looking at 8:30. At that point, and I sent him an email a little while ago and said 9. We're now 7 minutes to 9. And it looks like we have a 45-minute action agenda. Once folks and others here, and I don't know whether we want to go skip around and do the executive session so that we don't give an attorney on standby, or do we want to wait, hold that off and just get to when we get to it?
That breaks, we have a whole bunch of people who would have to kick out.
I have to. Everybody same place, so I don't know, we had probably another half hour. Yeah, you're up, thank you.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank Marilyn. We had a little miscommunication in my office of days, and so anyway, thank you for doing that. I want to report on the Finance Committee, and we've been meeting now for 4 months, I think now. Had some people missing, and overall, what we did this last meeting that we want to talk about first, and hopefully this won't take more than 5 minutes.
Excuse me, I'm just going to hand out the minutes from the meeting yesterday.
Okay.
You're
So we have our cable TV rates, and mainly that was brought to us in urgency because obviously there has been a lot of content increases, and so the margin, which is our smallest of our 3 services, was even smaller, and so it was of the essence of us not to lose money in cable, but again, it is our lowest margin business, as you know, looking at the numbers. So are you handing out the rate?
These are the minutes and the highlighted, or the recommendations.
Okay. So we don't have this sheet.
I have copies right now, I'll be glad to hand them out.
Yeah, please hand
While you're
those out.
talking.
Okay. So basically, we have 5 different services within cable.
Here's cable.
Basic cable, we have 11% of our customers. Now, there's 2,134 customers in cable. 11% are basic, 58% are an expanded, 1% Latino, 30% digital, and 8 customers in digital plus. So less than 1% of that. Currently, MINET charges $24.95 for basic, $54.99 for expanded, $62 for Latino, $62.99, and $70.99 for digital. So really, the two I want to spend the most time on are $70.99 digital, which is 30% of our customers, and the $54.99 for expanded. Now, one of the trends we've seen in talking with John is we've seen, as we've added customers, revenue has come down because people have been downgrading packages in cable. And so we're recommending that we go ahead and go to $25 on basic, which is not an increase there, our lowest end package. Expanded, we go from $54.99 to $63, and match that with Latino. Digital to $80 from $70.99, and then $130 in digital plus. And again, that'll affect 8 customers. Where that puts us, if you're looking at that chart with Charter, Comcast, Direct, and Dish, I think it puts us in a really good position. Okay, we're not necessarily the highest price to your guy John's concerns from there, but it puts us I think in a good position where we're still making our small margin that we're used to, but not driving people away where there's an obvious competitor. Now, I will say this. There's always going to be promotional pricing from these places, okay? We'll talk about promotional pricing, I think, later. Questions?
What's going on the Latino packages for Charter, Comcast, Direct?
It's a $7 add-on, so that's why you're seeing the $6.99. So basically, you add that to the expanded. Right.
How about with Comcast and Direct?
I wasn't as clear on that. I don't know if Jason is here.
What's the question?
On Latino with Dish and Direct,
Uh-huh.
what is that we don't have there?
What differentiates us?
They basically have basic cable plus the Latino stations. On ours, and Charter mainly, you have to take digital and add the Latino channels onto that. So you'll see we have a $6.99, or Charter's got $6.99, so that's including the digital. So it's a digital plus the $6.99.
So they give you a $13 discount at Direct TV if you take Latino channel also?
Well, they have,
It's not an apples to an apples.
yeah.
They offer 7 channels. Yeah, they don't have as broad of lineup as we do.
All right.
So anyway, but that's a small part of our customer base. So for the sake of time, if we could stick with mainly with expanded and digital, from there. So really, you're not seeing you're seeing digital go up, and you're seeing now this is going to generate, from my numbers, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I heard wrong yesterday, about is it about $60,000 more?
94.
Or not, excuse me, $94,000 more to the revenues with the price increases that we're recommending.
Actually, I'm sorry, it's going to be 66,000.
Okay, thank you.
94,000 would have been the 15% mark.
Okay.
66,000 is
It's
the 12.5.
There's 66,000 in additional gross margin, not revenues, but gross margin.
Okay, so 66,000, because we're recommending, and I apologize if this is a little confusing. They did these, if you look off to the bottom there, the 15, then 12.95, 12.5. Basically, we took 3 different structures and looked at what they would add. The bottom package would only add $10,000 if we raised rates 10%, okay, on those 2 main packages. So we threw that one out. The middle one at 12.5 would raise about 60, and then this one would if we did a 15% increase, that'd be 94. So by doing 12.95 as the recommendation, that's going to generate $66,000 in revenue. Does that make sense?
Is that on these pages somewhere? Just
It's,
to
no,
clarify.
the number it'll generate is not on those pages, but basically, we're giving you the rates, and then the 12.95% is what we're recommending, not 15.
What are you recommending in terms of an implementation of this? Are you,
This is gonna go in April. That's why we were so rushed to get this done.
So you're recommending 12.95% in April 1st?
Yep,
are you asking this board to approve that today to make it go in April?
yes.
So we're not gonna, frankly, I'm a little concerned that we're not giving any notice to the public whatsoever that we're doing this. And nobody has any idea that we're having this conversation.
I don't know that our competitors give their customers notice like that.
Yeah, I know, it's nice to be private.
True.
We're required to do 30 days notice.
Yeah, I just don't know if you want to, we do have it on the agenda, but we don't, okay, so our agendas are publicized.
Right, we spent a good hour debating this at the committee level, which I'll get to in here in a second. And we feel like, you could go the 15, but we felt like the 12.95% gets us with the rate increases. And we are not the first rate increase. I believe Charter and has raised their prices recently, which is really our direct competitor, and they've already raised. So we're still less. If we just look at Charter on our expanded, they're at 63.24. We're at 63. Digital, we would be at 80. They're at 79.99. So we're essentially right even. Now again, promotional pricing for brand new customers is something, once the billing system is done, I want our finance committee to look at, to draw in new customers. But for the existing base, I think matching the competitors, especially in cable, is the right move.
Board, do you want to talk about this one?
I think they've done some reasonable work, so that would cover the gaps we have right now.
I agree.
One of the things going forward we want to do is we do want to take a look at promotional pricing going forward of how to attract, and obviously with conjunction maybe with the marketing committee, and come back to you with, hey, to boost up the sales numbers, to John's point, what kind of promotions do we need to do now that the billing system will be in place? But that, to John and everybody, that was just too crazy to have two billing systems going on and try to implement new pricing for new customers as well. We have a data rate one. Are we trying to get that approved today as well? Okay. Do we have that sheet handed out? Yes. Okay. So the second one, nothing really going here too different. Basically, we're trying to go to simplify for our customers. Instead of playing the $9.95 game, we're just making it all even. So again, MINET current at the left, at the right is the recommended. And let's see if I think I have how many customers. Most of our customers are at 30 megabyte.
84%,
84%. And so the thought is we're adding potentially a new tier at 75 per marketing committee's recommendation. I will say this, mostly my debate, but I do feel like we're pushing higher data, which to me goes only to a small. The student population is what we're playing to, and to me, I think we have a lot of older population that has no clue the difference between 5 and 10, and I think price-wise, that's how they buy. And I'm talking about the people who have been at CenturyLink for 30 years, or Quest, or whatever, that are paying $29.95 or whatever. So we didn't have time to really give you a recommendation, but we feel later there's a gap between kind of the bottom end, because the 2 megabyte position is basically the student one through the school district. So we really have nothing for our customers under 30. Okay. So, and I doubt that in the future we're going to be able to make a phone call and double our capacity in bandwidth with no fee increase. Eventually that will run out, and pushing everybody to 100 is not necessarily to our advantage in our overall data cap that we're buying from LS. So nothing really crazy in these pricing increases there. We're adding a new one at 75, and then we're hoping to phase out the 61 because as those contracts come up, most of that is the students, and so we'll get away from 61. So basically, it's 2, 30, 75, and 100. And we're hoping as the students come back, they'll select the 75 and 100, which is more expensive than the 61 was. So essentially, we're going to see some price increase there. 6%, little about a 6% price increase there, but mostly again on the upper end where people care about speed, they're going to pay for it. Because here's the thing, we have no competitors at those speeds. So why not take advantage of, hey, you want those real speeds, you're going to pay a little more for them. And do it now versus in the future when our competitors do invest and have new technology. I'd rather charge a little more now than be able to drop the prices later. I'm not sure how much revenue this generates. Mark, do we know?
Well, when you look at the recommended price increase on data services, combined with the shift in customer mix that we expect to some of the higher levels, that would suggest that on an annual basis, by implementing that, we should achieve approximately another $152,000 in gross margin from data services, just by putting these price increases with the new 75 megabyte tier level in place.
I'm a little skeptical of that though, and so certainly we'll keep that in mind to see how well they do upselling to the 75 and 100 for the students as we get into the fall. So we'll see. I mean, I think that sounds great, but I'm yet to be convinced of that.
In hard numbers for the board, that takes us from 1.776 million gross margin of data to 1.928 million in gross margin of data.
Right, and then it means, the Ben's point, what that means is we would expect, I mean, currently on our data services, we don't have a 75 megabyte offering, and in the 100 megabyte offering, we have less than 0.5% of our customer base there. And what we believe is that by invoking these changes in offering levels and combined with the price increases, that we will see a shift out of our 30 megabyte customers and a shift out of our 61 megabyte customers, so that we would anticipate the 75 megabyte customer base would be about 9% of our total customers, and now the 100 megabyte would be about 5%, which, based on some of the input we've received from the marketing committee and other intelligence, doesn't seem to be that unrealistic.
14% would come from the 30 megabyte, taking that to a new average of 70% of our customer base.
Eventually, one of the things, if we had more time, I want to look at the finance committee. Our goal is once or twice a year to look at all of our pricing and probably more promotional and to see that we're at. Obviously, this is the first time we've done this, so it took us a lot longer. Now that we're a little more familiar, I think we can evaluate this so we're not behind the curve, but I think these are probably a year overdue in what we're presenting to you today. And obviously with the new implementation and the subcommittee structure, that's why the delay. So I think these are smart ways to go. If a competitor can't match it and we can drive more people to 100 at a lower price, sometimes a lower price will have more people buying it. And I don't know what our margin is on the 100. Obviously, it doesn't cost us any money to turn up the dial on our customer as far as cost. So obviously, you look at that as we drive to the 75 and 100, the margins just go crazy as far as what we're making. So that's great, but I'm just not convinced we can push everybody that way, especially when we see cable where everybody's been downgraded to away from stuff. So we'll see. But this is our recommendation. I will make one comment about our board. We have some issues where we need maybe more variety on our subcommittee. Unfortunately, some of the discussions that we're spending time on to me are not helpful to you guys. I'll give you an example. One question was asked that we spent a bunch of time on was, well, what would we have to raise prices if the cities did not give the subsidies? So one of the questions I want to ask this board is, are you interested in us doing any analysis where essentially the cities make no financial input in the current structure, where if there's a gap to debt service, the cities step in? Gary specifically is asking those questions each time and wants us to include those into the discussion. And he said I could use his name, so he said to talk to him. But to me, I don't think unless we're changing the status quo and it's a charge you give to us, I don't think those discussions about where the city's fit is really in our purview unless you tell us to do that. So I would like direction from this board if you'd like us to consider those options in the discussions. Because to me, with an hour and a half that we have, we weren't able to get to the recast budget, which to me we'll get to next month, which will read into the budget committee, and we'll give you a recommendation ahead of the budget committee where we'll go through the targets and look at the growth and the sales and see if those are reasonable. So that's something I want to dive into, but we wasted probably 45 minutes of time debating whether we were doing the correct things with budget law and all these things, and they're kind of acting like the board, and I'm like, we're a subcommittee. You don't have to do the same things that you guys have to do. And so to me, I think we need maybe some different people or some more people, because frankly, I'm getting frustrated and bogged down that we're not getting to the work you want us to spend time on. We're spending more time in nuance, and it's frustrating. So I would much rather give you stuff that's going to drive the business forward rather than debating whether the cities are going to pitch in and continue what they've been doing, from there. So I want that direction, and then of course, here's our recommendations. And next month, we will have the recast budget going forward.
Does anybody have an opinion on the question?
I agree that they should spend time on the recast budget rather than the time that we would have to spend. If the cities were to decide not to contribute, that would be a bigger discussion at the board, not the
So
cities.
can't decide not to contribute, unfortunately, unless we.
Right.
If you want to
Which is why I
default
think
on your own
exercises,
loans, yeah.
yeah.
So-
Which I think that exercise isn't a valuable use of time.
Yeah, there's maybe a side conversation needs to have Gary perhaps on that. Beyond that, though, I guess my perspective is I don't want the finance committee's charge limited in any way that would somehow take you away from getting at the bottom line of finance performance.
I agree
There's
with you.
conversations that need to take place. And, those people there, people like Gary are there for a purpose. They represent a lot of folks. He represents a lot of folks that have the same kinds of questions. And so,
Sure.
yeah, I understand the frustration in dealing with that voice, with those voices. We do it all the time. And probably for a similar reason here, I'm about to vote no on this request because I want those voices to have a chance to be heard. That said, I think these finances, my opinion is yeah, you need to have, I don't think you should have a limited charge based on based on this conversation. I think if you're frustrated with that, I think you need to work that out with your committee a little bit. If you need to spend a little more time with it, if you guys can find the time, that's probably useful time to be spent on behalf of this board because we're not performing. I mean, that's the bottom line here.
And the things that I think would...
At the end of the day, we're relying on some pretty aggressive sales forecasts to get to a point where we're still going to have to subsidize this operation in June. This isn't even a forecast that takes us to a place of profitability. At least not in this fiscal year.
But when we spend 45 minutes on debates on whether the city should kick in the money or not, I just don't feel that's appropriate at that level. So, at our level. You can debate it all you want, and if you have recommendations to us to spend time on that, I'm happy to spend time on that.
I think it's the role of the chair of the committee to control that conversation.
Okay, well, I could use your support in at least until we get through the recast, because we weren't able to touch the recast budget.
I'll find time to talk to Garrett also.
Thank you.
And Ben, one easy way to get to that question, I mean, they could run numbers out just immediately and say, yes, it would take X rates to cover everything. And it's nothing that's ever going to happen, but just to give someone a perspective, just for that citizen that does think, why don't you just raise your rates and cover everything? We'd say, well, yeah, we'd be triple, anybody's average rate, so yeah, we aren't going to do that. Right. And they can do that really quickly. Just go, whoop,
so the last thing that I want to ask of this committee is, what our plan is going forward is to continue to work on pricing of all of our 3 products, as well as promotional pricing once the billing system is in place. Do the recast budget in place, before we get to the budget cycle. Is there anything else that you want us to spend time on and put on the agenda other than the obvious things outside the box that we need to talk about. Because if not, I'm going to tell them, this is the charge you've given us, this is what we're sticking with, and it helps me then control my committee, which has been a challenge.
I guess it's reasonable.
I'm not prepared to limit your conversation. You know, you guys need to get to a place where you're comfortable making recommendations to us about the state of the finances and how to get to the bottom line. If everybody else is comfortable, you've got your direction.
Yeah, I think also just caveat, this is a brand new committee. We've never done this before, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get it dialed in.
Okay, but if there are specific things you want us to focus on and include new variables that we're assuming the status quo with some things and obviously some changes. If there is anything that you want, please send that down.
Let me ask you a question. Are you going to be available at these meetings? Because you're late this time. You've missed the last several.
Okay. Well, last meeting I was worshiping to the porcelain god when I missed. This meeting we had a miscommunication, and before that I didn't know you guys had made the request to have me come report. But before last meeting, which I wasn't able to be here, I didn't realize I was reporting. So you shouldn't be a problem going forward.
And there was going to be a discussion at some point in time about rotating the chair at your committee. I think you were an interim chair pending the decision of your board, who they wanted, or some kind of recommendation from your board.
Sure. If you guys want us to consider that, I'm happy to do that. Trust me.
I'm just wondering if that conversation is.
Nobody told me that we were looking at rotating.
Okay.
So if that's the case,
I think that was in the original charge, that we had asked you to be the interim chair pending, everybody got put together, and then there'd be a chair established at that point.
Okay,
So
I'll bring that up and see what everybody wants. At this point, I'm happy to do whatever. I want to focus though on the numbers of MINET and improving MINET, and not debate political debates that really are at this level, which I enjoyed before, but that's not what I want my focus to be on this committee. And unfortunately, some people are losing that perspective of they think they're the MINET board rather than a subcommittee.
When these, pardon me, but when these subcommittees were set up, were there not specific charges for them to deal with?
there was a charter that was created on behalf of this committee, and this board acted on that charter. I think there was also an initial charge to basically, we collected people, it's what I just described to Ben, in terms of, Ben was asked and agreed to serve as the acting chair pending, collecting all the membership together.
But
Pricing and financials were the two things that we're sure we wanted to vet, so you guys didn't have to spend so much time on.
Perfect, yeah, well,
But
so
we're
that
spending
seems,
half our time on
but
other
doesn't that, I guess what I'm looking for is some sort of a, some charge that would allow you to direct the conversation towards that charge. In other words, if this is your role,
Here's a document.
okay, well then, so I would just default to that. And if you're uncomfortable with that, then
No, I'm not
then
uncomfortable with
we all
that.
can take a look at revising that.
It doesn't stop the questions coming up of, well, what about if we sell MINET? Like, it's like.
Well, it's out of order. is what
Well,
that is.
but it's come up, and we have to spend a half an hour talking about it. So a lot of it is.
And some of that might get its way worked out. We might
Yeah.
need to just chip away some of those things to
Yeah.
get to the folks. Or it needs to-
Yeah, or should we sell off cable? I mean, it's like, unless you tell us to consider that, something outside the box, I'm not gonna consider that, right? There's no point. We have an hour and a half, that's it. So, anyway, I'm done, thank you. So you can approve or not approve our recommendation. But that was unanimous, the recommendation was unanimous, for both.
Okay. By the way, do we have a motion to approve the January board minutes from anybody?
Move to approve.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's see. Can we take up this audio request, recording request for decision at another day? And the data tiers and prices, we've just done that, correct? Cable TV tiers and prices, we've done that.
Just a vote is needed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, both. That is correct. So is there a motion to take up first the data tier and prices? Yes. in support of the Finance Committee recommendation.
Would that be sufficient? Just that we move to accept the Finance Committee recommendations relative to price increase?
I've given you my feeling. I think we need more public notice.
Well, I understand that, but in order for that
Otherwise, yes.
discussion to happen, we need to have a motion on the table, arguably. And so I don't disagree with you, but just to move the process forward, I will move that we accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee for both data tiers and pricing, as well as the cable TV tiers and price.
Second.
With a couple of seconds, okay. Discussion.
Well, I share your concern. There's a degree of urgency that we need to move this forward. And while it was on the agenda, you know, the meat of it, Ben's report, you know, we've had for 20, he said 5 minutes, it's been 25, but that's Ben. And so
Thank you, John.
It concerns me a bit that we're moving very quickly on this, and the old due diligence thing would be nice to have a bit more time, but I think that, you know, sort of given the work that they've done, I think it's a reporting out issue more than anything else. So I've got some concerns about this in terms of the process that we're using. I'm going to be a yes vote, however, but I just want those concerns noted.
Other people want to voice concerns or support or any other comments?
Well, you mentioned that we need to give them 30 days notice, so we could, might have the ability to do that for April
Yes.
Fool's Day.
We're not going until April, right?
April
April
Fool's
1st
Day.
is the,
Yeah, so March.
So March 1st.
Yeah.
In the
So
March
March is already-
billings, there will be a notice that goes out to every customer.
And one point I'll make is, if we don't do anything, then May would be your first time you'd be able to have that price increase. And then to your point of the debt service in June, you'd only have 2 months of extra income to help support that. So essentially,
I get it. It's self-serving, I get it. Okay. More comments?
I'm ready to.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. Okay. Passes.
Was that for both recommendations?
That's my motion reflected both, so that took care of C and D together.
Okay.
one other quick question in regard to our committee. Pricing is our main, financials and pricing are our two main charges. Are you wanting us to spend time on promotional pricing in the coming months to ramp up the new customer acquisition?
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
would
Okay.
like to. Yeah,
So
that's-
budget and that will be our two main focuses, and
From my perspective, and I mentioned this last time you weren't here, from my perspective, is we had one good bite at the 100 megabit Apple here. You know, to say we've got it and they don't.
Yep.
Because eventually they will.
and now we
And
have,
so now, you know, we have it, we have the service, we have the price structure now, a marketing plan for that, a promotional plan for that. My suggestion is look at giving away Netflix for a couple months or whatever. Something that says, here's how you use your 100 megabits.
perfect. Okay, we'll work on it and get back to you next month.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, I think we have reached, well, actually, we haven't, you know, we're not at 9:30, so if we want to go back to this discussion on the audio recordings request for decision. I think we could do that quickly. We'll dispose of this business. Okay, let's do that. You want to elaborate on the staff report that was given anyway?
I did research at both the state and some county and city levels, and the general report that came back on the cost of producing a tape or a flash drive minimum was $25, because it was considered that there's staff time involved plus equipment involved. And so the recommendation based on that information was to make our price no less than $25 to produce a tape or a flash drive.
There was also a choice, I believe you gave us, of posting it on the website?
That will
As a
be,
WAV file or whatever?
correct.
Is that
Well, if we
The
were
other
to do a
license rate.
combination, get it on the hard drive, and then if somebody makes a request, charge them the fee and send them a link. Then no hardware required.
May I ask, the two cities, do you put recordings of the council meetings on the website?
I don't know if we do or don't, be honest with you, probably not.
I'm guessing you really wouldn't, that's really thick.
Uh-huh. And following that model, it would be, the minutes would be posted, the agendas would be posted, but the recording would be available for an extended price. And that would be staff recommendation.
I would say that in support of Mike's point, I have browsed other people's websites and I have seen it posted in the field. I've seen videos, I've seen the audios posted, routinely with those things. I don't know what that means these days in terms of resource consumed by I don't know how much work that is. And I don't know how much space
Well-
that takes up on the hard drive. These days, it doesn't seem like it'd be that much, but who knows?
And
It really
this-
isn't.
This meeting is being recorded, and last meeting is already up on YouTube.
Mhm.
And that may be sufficient just to reply with that response. And there's only been one request made for a copy of a recording.
What's the quality of the recording? We get comments from all around the room. I mean, I'm pretty confident in what we have here, but
Well, and that
helpful
was part of
comments
the
from the
reason-
audience, are they picked up?
They have been picked up,
Okay.
yes. Those are pretty strong
Okay, good.
receivers. But that was also why presentations were brought up to the front to make sure it was more audible.
So,
I
is there a reason?
think the fee's reasonable if we actually have to physically do something because there's staff time, but then we should look into, is this good enough to have, video uploaded, or is there an easy mechanism to upload just the audio? You just have it sitting there.
Well, I think we need to have this in place because I don't know that we could rely on, with all due respect, I'm not sure we could rely on this every time, whereas we can rely on this every time. So minimally, we have that.
I guess I move approval of the recommended fee with a sub-recommendation that attaches to that to look into if there's an easy way to upload it onto a website.
Second.
I would-
Yeah.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I-
Okay. Do you have clear direction on that one? Yes. All right, let's get hold of our attorney. Let's kick out the audience.